the grand final for North America. Both of these teams were just pushed to a Game 5. Now they're going to go head-to-head, and I think we expect this series to play out a little bit different, not only because it's a best of 7, but because these two teams can play very different things against each other than what we just did see on the rest of the NA bracket. If you're just tuning in, welcome. This is promising to be a very good series, and we got Zico, Super Tees, and Ben Rookie to break it all down. Now, Zico, when we do look at these two squads, we've seen them go head-to-head plenty of times before. What do we actually expect to see in the blind?
Oof, it's so hard to call from Super Frogs because they keep running that Roguelock Druid. Honestly, I think we could see the Mage Lock Druid in the blind from them. And from the boys, it's a little bit easier to call. Probably going to be the Resto Druid, DK, and Windwalker, if I had to guess.
Okay, Ben, how do you feel about that?
I feel like there's a surprise named Thugonomics who's been waiting in the wings. And I think if there's any matchup that he could come in and really be an asset to his team, I think it would be this one, because if they do lock in the Mage Warlock, I think Thugonomics coming in on the Destruction Warlock pairing with Chun-Li could be a solid answer for that.
I feel like Mage Warlock's your favorite comp in the game right now.
It's one of my favorite comps.
I know Double Mage is actually one of your favorite, but I feel like
right now, the Bakery Cleave is definitely my favorite composition, but Mage Lock was always the comp that I competed with, so definitely near and dear to my heart.
It's strong right now, too. We've really started to see it make a big resurgence recently, like last 2 weeks, maybe? We're really starting to see it a lot more. Sid, what do you expect to see as we do touch down on the Grand Arena for our blind?
What I would like to see, because we really haven't seen the Mage Warlock put to the test as far as like a Wizard competition. We haven't seen a Wizard and Wizard matchup. Smexon also plays Elemental Shaman. They can play Elemental Shaman, Destruction Warlock, Restoration Druid, which in the past has done well into Mage Warlock as well. We haven't seen it happen, but it could be a reasonable option for them if they're expecting that in the blind pick.
I really like that idea. How do you feel about that, Zico?
We saw Octagon actually run Elemental Destro Resto Druid in Europe. It wasn't against Mage Warlock, but it looked pretty decent when they did run it, so it could be something to consider.
I think there's a lot of surprises in store for us in this series.
Do you know something?
I don't know anything.
He knows something.
Yeah,
he knows something.
I
don't know.
Somebody told him
so bad
something.
at hiding it.
Yeah, I know. He's just like...
The best part is no one's told me anything.
Yeah, I love that, like...
Right.
I think that maybe there might be some surprises.
I really do.
Who got to you? Who told you?
Who's the insider?
No insider.
Write it down.
Yeah, write it down.
Write it down. No one else needs to know. It'll be our secret.
So every now and then, you know, we have the opportunity to talk to some of the players. Sometimes they'll DM us, let us know what they have in store. We like to keep it secret until we get in the arena, and it's pretty clear here that Ben Rookie talked to somebody and he knows something. I can see that glint in his eyes, and we'll just have to wait until we touch down in the Grand, and we're getting close to find out what they are going to play. And we want to hear from you. Who do you think's going to win? And there's the answer. Super Frogs. 59% of you think that Super Frogs will be able to tie themselves with Method Black for 540 points. Now, of course, the region points are going to be separate, but it shows just how dominant these teams can really be. And now looking at the Super Frogs.
Oh, Super Frogs, they've done it.
Oh, this is the blind pick advantage for the Super Frogs. This is the composition the boys should be very afraid of, and I feel like this is disaster time for the boys.
Well, we said it yesterday, Chanimal's talent with the Demonic Circle could be meta-defining. Let's see if he's decided to run it here on the Grand Arena. I almost would say I'd be surprised if he isn't. I don't think he's put it down just yet. Oh, he is. He's got the Demonic Circle in the starting area. So the Super Frogs are going to look at just mobility and deflection. Keep the boys away from themselves as long as possible until they just get overwhelmed with pressure.
Yeah, Chun-Li committing the touch of death immediately, trying to take down Wealthy Man, but Cubsy will deny with the Iron Bark, and this is one of the problems. You go after Wealthy Man, guess what? You have Chanimal just free casting. Infernal's dropped out. Dark Soul gets popped as well. They cannot leave Chanimals alive or alone for too long. Chun-Li could just easily be taken down as they shred through Life Cocoon. Chun-Li with Diffuse Magic, Touch of Karma already traded out a lot of defenses, but Wealthy Man could be in some trouble. Getting lower. Huge greed by Wealthy Man. What a scary moment.
Well, we haven't seen this strategy. When we saw Chanimal switch over to Demonic Circle, he was still the main target. Now with the Demonic Circle, we see the boys focusing the Mage instead. They already get an Ice Block. Maybe they can kill the Mage faster. The danger is that Chanimal will also kill them faster, so it becomes a bit of a race when they go after the Mage instead. But it may be a race that they can win. I'm curious to see how Gorecki decides to coordinate in these assaults. Cubsy in a good position far away. I love this succubus play as well from Chanimal. He knows that it'll be difficult for Wealthy Man to secure crowd control, even himself to get crowd control, so sending his pet off to get an 8-second crowd control is going to be very effective. Chaos Bolt's flying in. Chanimal trying to support Wealthy Man. Still having a bit of a hard time. Temporal Shield recovers him for now. Smexen Death Striking back to full. I'm curious to see if Smexen can steal any effective crowd controls with that Dark Simulacrum on that Unholy Death Knight. That's definitely an X factor when we've seen these Windwalker Death Knights go into the Wizards. If Smexen on this Death Knight can steal crowd controls such as a Polymorph or a Fear, he can then use that on the enemy healer Cubsy, preventing him from healing and then burst down a target for a kill. Smexen could be the X factor for the boys in game number 1.
Yep, what is Cubsy going to be able to do? He's sneaking away, looking for a drink potentially. Throws in a Maledict over onto Smexen. No anti-magic shell going to be available. There's the Seduce onto Gorecki as he's caught in crowd control with the Polymorph onto Gorecki. Smexen left all alone. Do they have the damage? Now turning their attention onto Chanimal, but still big pressure on Smexen using the Dark Simulacrum. Was he able to get anything? That really is the question. Double leg sweep coming in. Huge pressure for the boys. Can they take Chanimal down? He's very far away from his demonic circle. I don't know if he's actually in range to escape this melee pressure.
Well, if you accidentally run out of range of your portal and can't use it, that's going to cost you a lot of big defensive cooldowns. That's a mistake that Chanimal can't make more than once now in game number 1. And if they lose the blind pick, that could be devastating because the boys have, as we've already stated, Thugonomics on Destruction Warlock to bring in against this composition. The Super Frogs have, we would say, technically won the blind pick compositionally, but the Super Frogs are also making mistakes, and the boys are capitalizing on it to overcome that disadvantage.
Yeah, Chun-Li has Touch of Death rolling once again. Wealthy Man responds with the Temporal Shield, with the Iron Bark, but now, without those defensive cooldowns, this is an opportunity for Chun-Li and Smexen to push forward and try to get that second Ice Block from Wealthy Man if they can. Chanimal's going to have to deny, spamming out Fears onto Smexen. And it looks like now the boys have defaulted back to kind of a split strategy. They're just trying to slow down Wealthy Man by putting Chun-Li on him and then having Smexen sit on Chanimal to deny as much damage as possible, potentially buying Gorecki a little bit of time to get some mana, but it doesn't look like he's going to be really going for that play.
All right, Gorecki crowd controlled by Chanimal. Chanimal looking to set up for a kill. They secure a Polymorph off the back end of the chain. Smexen denies the kill with Anti-Magic Zone, now looking to counter-aggress onto Chanimal. Cubsy deflects with Thorns. They have to decide whether or not they want to attack into that reflected damage. Why did Chanimal... It's a very odd place to put your Demonic Circle, that green glowing circle in the center. That is Chanimal's escape mechanic. He just put it in the middle of the map where he's standing. Not exactly the best place to escape. I'm wondering what he's going to do with that.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to see. Paralysis secured onto Cubsy. They have the damage to take down Chanimal. Still no unending resolve for another minute and 15 seconds. So Chanimal, a really vulnerable target. I want to see if Chun-Li is running the Tiger Eye Brew. No, he's not. So no Tiger Eye Brew specialization. That's going to limit his damage and output onto Chanimal. So I think Chanimal ultimately will survive. And the main focus in this matchup will likely be Wealthy Man moving forward.
All right, let's see if the boys can do it. They got an ice block early on, but another minute, and Wealthy Man will have 2 again. So that initial burst may not matter in the end. Maybe it will. Wealthy Man gets bursted with good crowd control initiation. Chanimal denies the connect with a triple Shadow Fury and Fear. Chanimal's support always on point. Definitely one of the best players in the game if we really want to debate it here on the desk. That was great utility from that Destruction Warlock to save the day and hold on to an ice block. A very important defensive cooldown for a Frost Mage. Very important cooldown for the Super Frogs in general in this grand final. I will say, though, the boys are looking solid on this comp. The Super Frogs were dominating with the Warlock Mage, and I think it comes down more so to the targeting. The boys are just going after the Mage instead of the Warlock, and that Demonic Circle doesn't do anything if you're attacking the Mage. And then the Warlock loses the double Mortal Coil threat, so you don't have to worry about that added crowd control when you're getting bursted down. I think the targeting change from the boys is definitely a strategy adaptation that a lot of Cleaves are going to maybe take away if it manages to work for them.
Yep, Polymorph down to Gorecki. Chun-Li and Smexen still with the split strategy. Smexen sitting on Chanimal. You can see Chun-Li on Wealthy Man, and that is going to tax Cubsy's mana, because that is another advantage the boys have in this matchup. If they can limit Cubsy's ability to sneak away and go for drinks, then all of a sudden that is a win condition for them in this matchup, especially when splitting targets like this. Cubsy has to keep up heal over time effects on not just 1, but 2 targets. That's going to burn twice as much mana. Chanimal porting away with the Demonic Circle, getting away from Chun-Li's Fist of Fury. Chaos Bolt coming in. What is he going to be able to get done? And so far, Chanimal, without the double Mortal Coil, hasn't really been able to force Chun-Li and Smexon scared just yet in this matchup.
Oh, is he going to be able to stop him? How much mana did you get, Cubsy? This is really the question. He needs to maintain his mana as high as possible for his team to find victory deeper into dampening. If he can maintain basically full mana, then Super Frogs should walk away with the series, but he didn't get any mana off that drink. That is not good for the Super Frogs.
Yep, getting no mana, definitely not ideal for Cubsy in this matchup. As he gets pinned up against the wall, nicely done by Gorecki. Once again, Succubus play onto Chun-Li. He trinkets out. That was a very aggressive trinket there by Chun-Li. Infernals get dropped out by Chanimal. They're looking to counter pressure. Wealthy Man with no Icy Veins doesn't have his main offense available in this matchup, but Chun-Li forced to trade out his Touch of Karma, deciding to port away to the midfield. Wealthy Man now with Temporal Shield should be able to survive this go. Cubsy once again trying to sneak away, but the boys have been doing a really good job shutting that down. Gorecki really playing into the fact that on a Mistweaver Monk, he should have a mana advantage, but with good polymorphs, good fears coming in from Super Frogs, Cubsy once again going to be looking for a drink, and I think this time he's going to be able to regenerate quite a bit.
All right, how much mana? They traded Unending Resolve for that. Not the most amount of mana. Now a Stolen Fear redirected onto Cubsy, got his Gladiator's Medallion. If Cubsy gets interrupted on any of these heals, it could be lights out for Chanimal. Fortunately, he's not getting interrupted on any of those heals. Chanimal is going to go back to full health, and with Innervate well timed, Cubsy manages to accomplish that for free. Chun-Li now getting counter pressure. Gorecki gets caught in Polymorph. This could be it for the boys. Any damage? Chun-Li gets Ursul's Vortex back into midfield. Clutch play by Cubsy in game number 1.
And we also said that the Super Frogs, it looked like they found the exact matchup that they wanted inside of the blind pick. And now also having it here in the blind means that they're going to have that counter comp potential through this best of 7 series. And not only do we see the comp look fantastic for them, we see them perform on the absolute highest level on it.
This was exactly the matchup that they wanted. So the boys, they switched over to a Mistweaver healer. They wanted to fight Super Frogs playing the Rogue Lock Druid with this composition, similarly to what we saw from Method Black versus Wildcard Gaming. Now instead, Super Frogs, they're gonna lock in the Mage Lock Druid blind, and it's gonna pay off for them. Chanimal, beautiful Seduce plays. Time and time again, he likes to summon up that Succubus and get those big Seduces out, and that forces out a lot of cooldowns. And then here, that Vortex from Cubsy was great. Onto Chun-Li, gonna suck him right back into the open, where Wealthy Man and Chanimal can, of course, finish the game. Really, really nice play from Super Frogs, but also a very intelligent pick here. This is what I wanted to see. I wanted to see just do something out of the ordinary. Everyone expects you guys to play the Roguelock Druid. Throw a curveball.
Yeah, a curveball is definitely important when you have the 2 best teams as well, right? Especially when it's going to be these 2 squads that have gone up against each other so many times throughout this season. The first blow is going to be struck. It is going to be Super Frogs who do pull ahead, and this is the team that has won more times than not. Now, when they have to lock in on the blind, then what do you expect them to play?
I don't know. I feel like going back to that comfort pick, the Rogue Lock Druid is probably their best bet. I think if they lock in Wealthy Man and play the Mage Lock Druid once again, that's when we're really going to see Thugonomics come in. And they have a couple different options. We know Smexon plays the Elemental Shaman, and that could be a potentially good matchup for them as well. They play Elemental Shaman, Destruction Warlock.
Oh, I thought for a second, I was like, Mukimbala at Dalaran Sewers.
It's vision for Game 7.
That was a little, you guys just got to look into the crystal ball. Mukimbala Game 7 potentially coming out. Dalaran Sewers, a smaller map, obviously a lot smaller than Mukimbala. Sid, how do you feel about this map? What does it say in your mind that the boys want to do?
Well, it allows them to deny drinks more so, as they're expecting Cubsy to play Druid in most of this matchup. So it makes sense for the compositions that the boys have prioritized, the double melee setups, go for small maps, places where they can deny the Druid from drinking. But I don't think that they should be going for the cleaves. They should be using Thugonomics, going head-to-head with the Wizards. And, well, now maybe not. On the small maps, the Super Frogs also have to make the decision, is the Mage Warlock going to be fruitful? And they don't think so. So they will be likely locking in Rogue Warlock on any small map when they don't know what's coming their way and they have to lock in blind. Then when we go to the bigger maps, and this is why that first blind pick was so important to win, was so that now they'll have that advantage should this series swing to Game 7, where they can go to the biggest map and then play that Mage Warlock.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things, too, where I feel like you're the Super Frogs and you're totally over the moon, because now on the small maps, you get to play a composition that can go toe-to-toe with a lot of different compositions on the small maps. So the boys lose part of the advantage that you get when you're coming off of a loss. So Zico, how do you feel about having this as basically they're blind, then when they get to go to the bigger maps, that's when they go for that Warlock, that's when they go for that Mage?
I like that a lot. And what Superfrogs are doing is, this is exactly what I want to see from them. The boys, though, I have a couple of questions here. Shouldn't Gorecki be on that Mistweaver monk?
I think so.
Rich?
Man, now
Wait, what? That's his job?
Man,
Well, I don't know.
This debate.
You just said that, Gorecki seems like the current best healer in the world, so I would just say, unless we're playing a racing
Okay.
car, and, we're trying to be the best, driver, but we're playing only a racing car, winning only races, I was just, I just wanted to know that.
I am going to say, since you're obviously a little bit salty about it, the list that you did hand me, after we went back and forth and we made those few little tweaks, I agree on a top 10, but we were asking who the best player of all time is. And you know what? If I have to pick one, I don't even pick Snuts. I do pick Swapsy.
My objection was when you said, I think Snuts and Swapsy, they are the people that you would put in that conversation. I was like, well, here's a couple of them. Here's a couple more.
Mitch Jones is in the chat right now. Would you consider him?
I mean, he is an arcane mage. He knows how to bake pies. Could be.
All right, now I can just shred up this list and go back to saying it's Swapsy. But we do see the boys here. I do think it's fair criticism to say that maybe we do need to see Gorecki on that monk just a little bit more.
Well, I think in this particular matchup, it would give them a big advantage. I just think the Mistweaver monk, the added damage that it brings, the mana durability, can definitely go toe-to-toe with the Druid. In fact, is better than the Druid in terms of mana. And then that extra damage you have from the Way of the Crane, it's just... all of those things add up to being really successful against the Roguelock Druid in particular. So I think for the boys, once again, it's Gorecki. He's going to be going to his comfort pick, but that begs the question, why did Gorecki play Mistweaver Monk in the first game? Isn't this the matchup that they want?
Yeah.
Why would you go to the Druid now when you finally do get the Roguelock Druid? So a little bit of confusion there for me, but it looks like they're just going to be sticking with that Druid.
I think that sticking to the Druid is going to tell us a lot about how this series does potentially play out. Let's see if the boys are going to be able to tie up this series, or if the Super Frogs, even when disadvantaged, are going to be able to string together wins.
All right, Gorecki playing Druid in the matchup that I do not think is favored. I'm not entirely sure what his thinking is on this. Maybe he's worried about getting outplayed. That is one way that the Mistweaver can get totally demolished, is by getting crowd controlled out and then bursted down. And we did see Gorecki lose earlier on in the day, a bit of a throwaway, a bit of a choke, honestly, against the move in that one particular match. So potentially he just wants to play something that he's comfortable with. But we've seen time and time again when teams try and go with what they're comfortable with rather than what is favored, it's not very likely that they come out ahead overall. Smexen gets bursted down early on, a bit unexpected. Normally the Death Knight not the priority target before dampening. Super Frogs trying to mix it up here in game number 2. Infernal still ramping up. Chanimals with potentially big Chaos Bolts, then swap to Chun-Li. I actually like that initial attack on Smexen. That baits Gorecki into putting Life Bloom on Smexen. Then when he's ramped up at the end of his Infernal damage, switches to Chun-Li, who doesn't have that Life Bloom. That costs Gorecki a lot of mana. If they can keep setting up these swaps, they could definitely win on mana versus the boys here in Dalaran.
Yeah, Gorecki trinkets out of blind. Full kitty shot secured onto Chun-Li. Good pressure here from the Super Frogs. You can see Cubsy just throwing in Solar Wrath, and that's one of the things I love about Cubsy. He is not afraid to get his hands dirty, throw in that extra Restoration Druid damage when he feels like he really needs to. And that sort of offensive play is what puts him a cut above the rest on the Restoration Druid. And that does give Super Frogs definitely a lead. We'll see right now. Cubsy's mana at around 70%. Gorecki, what is he doing right now? Often he'll go into cat form and he'll look to push forward and get crowd control, but right now he's looking just to regenerate some mana, and now actually has a lead over Cubsy, who's sitting down, who resets his mana. Both Druids playing at a high level, realizing they need to hold on to that mana lead for as long as they can.
I think the Super Frogs are going to take this unless the boys try some compositions outside of their comfort zone. Super Frogs have been just owning throughout the entire day on this Rogue Warlock. Finally, some pressure for the boys here. Channel down below happened. Now Snuts looks to counterattack. Big Chaos Bolt connects. Gorecki denies the kill for a couple seconds. Close call. Chun-Li stays alive, doesn't overreact. Cubsy now crowd controlled. Chanimal on the back foot, taking huge pain. Cubsy's not exchanging Iron Bark, trying to hold on to that for a more efficient trade, but is risking a lot by not just activating it now. Instead, is powering through with Nourish. Mana equalizing on both sides. No real significant advantage establishing itself just yet. Another 2 comboed Chaos Bolts as Chun-Li has to make a choice. Will he retreat away or will he just trade Touch of Karma? Looks like he might not need to do either, catching a couple of Vivifies on himself and then restabilizing. Crowd control now faded. Gorecki can connect some heals, but I really like what the Super Frogs are doing. They're spreading pressure onto 2 targets. As a Restoration Druid, you have to heal so much more so inefficiently when this occurs. I think the wise decision for Gorecki is to just maintain Life Bloom on Chun-Li. There's no way that Smexen is the kill target. He's the bait target before dampening. So Gorecki can maintain his mana a lot better by just relying on Death Strike and keeping Life Bloom on Chun-Li. Chanimal gets bursted, trying to Nether Ward some incoming Gladiator's Maledicts and remove that healing absorption effect. Chanimal gets gripped into a Ring of Peace off the side. Cubsy gates to get back by his side. Instant reaction by Cubsy to what could have been a close call.
Yeah, but Smexen in a little bit of trouble with a kidney shot. Chun-Li trying to reverse the pressure with Touch of Death on a Chanimal. What is Cubsy going to do? Still has the Iron Bark, so there's a lot of responses available for Super Frogs to this situation. Chun-Li really wants to get some damage rolling, but I think Super Frogs will be able to deny Thorns and Iron Bark. Now, all of a sudden, Smexen and Chun-Li have to think twice about attacking into that. Infernals get dropped down. Chanimal's looking to reverse the pressure. Cubsy in the back line, able to heal up his team. Gorecki with a slight mana lead at this point in the game, but there's been good pressure for both sides.
All right, Chanimal still holding on to vital defensive cooldowns, but now the Super Frogs are lower on mana, so Cubsy will need to sneak away. He's already doing that. Off in the corner. Do they see him? Gorecki jumps in, tries to slam dunk Cubsy, but then gets bashed up. Surprising to not see Cubsy go for a Hibernate off that bash. Doesn't go for any crowd control. Now walks into a paralysis of Chun-Li. Chanimal dips low. Both Druids in crowd control. Who's going to have to make a trade first here? Looks like Gorecki responds. Iron Bark should be enough for Chun-Li to stay alive. Another grip into Ring of Peace. Really like this knockback strategy, although Cubsy is never being caught off guard with it. It could net them a kill if Cubsy slips up for even a second.
Yeah, that's one of the vulnerabilities of the Destruction Warlock. Although you have a lot of tools in your kit, you're very durable as a class. You don't have much mobility, especially when you aren't using that Demonic Circle. So Chanimals can get exploited in this match. They can use that Death Grip. They can use the Ring of Peace, knock them into an unfavorable position. Chun-Li getting really low, trades out the Touch of Karma. Close call there for Chun-Li. I don't think he has his every man for himself for Racial, so he won't be able to get out of stuns. And without his Touch of Karma, now all of a sudden there is an opening here for Super Frogs, especially with Snuts having Smoke Bomb and Vendetta.
All right, let's see what they can get done here. We're getting closer and closer to dampening. Actually, it's just started. And we're even on mana. Right now, Chun-Li is much further behind on defensive cooldown, so I would give the advantage to Super Frogs right now. And if you're the boys and the advantage is on the opposing team on your map pick and your counter comp, that's already not looking too good. The Super Frogs might be able to 4-0 the grand finals if the boys can't come up with a response. Right now, they're floundering.
Definitely. Smexen taking a little bit of pressure, and Gorecki's going to have to heal multiple targets in this matchup, especially as we move forward into dampening. Smexen's ability to keep himself alive will be limited. This match is looking really good for the Super Frogs. Gorecki's almost completely tapped on mana. Chun-Li forced to run away in the situation. Chanimal still under fire as both Snuts and Chanimal turn their attention onto Smexen, who is very durable still at this point in the match. So you need to make sure they're continually pressuring down Chun-Li, especially during this point in the match where he is the most vulnerable target and still doesn't have a Touch of Karma available. Chun-Li making a push with Touch of Death. Chanimal could get low. Doesn't want to under-respond to the situation. Cubsy keeping him healthy with the Iron Bark, but good pressure here for the boys.
All right, both teams are almost completely tapped on mana. Defense is equalizing out. It's anyone's match here. Gorecki is in the outskirts of the arena, but with a Fell Hunter chasing him, is not going to be able to drink and regenerate mana. Cubsy, on the other hand, as he managed to sneak away, he got a big lead on mana, but now he's crowd controlled. Will he be able to exchange that mana for healing in time? Chanimal still low. He gets knocked off the side. No, Ring of Peace was just a couple inches away from knocking Chanimal out of line of sight. Now Infernals have landed. Chanimal looks to counterattack, ramping up for huge damage. Every Soul Shard that he spends increases the damage of the next incoming Chaos Bolt. Chun-Li exchanges, but he's very low on health. Nether Ward redirects that damage, and the Gladiator's Maledict. Multi-play here by Chanimal. Tons of damage on Chun-Li. Gorecki feared off in the corner. Shadow Fury to follow up, and Chun-Li gets nailed here in game number 2. Super Frogs are looking solid to take the entire series.
I mean, winning here on this map and looking like that, if you're the boys, you start just tearing up the notebook and trying to write a new one, because this looks like a 4-0 now. It completely does.
It's very, very possible. Right now, Super Frogs, they hold all the cards. All they need to do is wait for the next map to lock in. If it's big, they can go again for the Roguelock Druid. Actually, they can just lock in the Roguelock Druid no matter what. The boys, they need Gorecki on that Mistweaver to be able to win this matchup, in my opinion. Otherwise, it's going to be a situation where Gorecki goes out of mana, gets forced back, gets forced to look for drinks, and that's when the Super Frogs can get that pressure and then actually allow Cubsy to get that drink. So what it comes down to is just that. Cubsy got the drink, he managed to dump off his mana, heal Chanimal. Now Chanimal has no pressure on him. All of a sudden, he doesn't have to be afraid of getting kicked on a Chaos Bolt, get kicked in general, and he can just go do his thing.
A 69% win rate as well with RLD. You can't argue with math. We're going to have to see if they're going to be able to take the whole thing. We're getting straight into the game. It is already looking so good for the Super Frogs. Then, am I allowed to talk?
Yep.
All right, we're going to see if the Super Frogs can potentially take this right now. It's going to be a much smaller map. This seems like something that could be good for the boys, but something that we've already seen from the Super Frogs is that when they get on the lock and they get on the rope, they can handle these small maps. Can they handle the pressure that the boys are about to serve now that Gorecki's back on the Monk?
Yeah, and Gorecki, like you just mentioned, is going to be on that Monk. This is the matchup that we wanted to see, so hopefully he can deliver here in game number 3.
But it may be a little bit too late. The Super Frogs now in the lead 2-0. If they can win 2 more, they're going to be the champions of Cup number 5, secure their lead in the North American region, and look solid moving into Cup number 6, where basically anything could happen. Gorecki sitting through a blind as he preemptively life cocooned. No sap from Snuts. Unfortunately there, that crowd control chain now dropped, and the boys can comfortably make a big push.
Yeah, definitely. Chun-Li in a little bit of trouble as well. Super Frogs getting good counter pressure. Chun-Li getting low, forced to trade out the touch of Karma. Are we going to see the Maledicts once again onto Chun-Li? He's still not out of it yet. Gorecki, with the way of the crane, will be able to top him off, but defensively, the boys, they've traded out quite a bit in their arsenal. Snuts still pushing through. Chun-Li having to run away. What is he going to do? How is he going to survive? Snuts with the Shadow Step, Kenyatta, Gorecki, he trinkets out. Anti-Magic Zone traded out as well. Right now, the boys are flailing to survive, using so much and overlapping everything.
That was, to say it nicely, a bit of a panic attack from the boys. Say it not so lightly, a complete throwaway. The Super Frogs are setting up really well to find victory here. This may be the shakiness that we expected from Gorecki on Mistweaver potentially, and why we saw him pick Druid. If he gets kind of dismantled by the Super Frogs like this, it's not going to look too good for the rest of the series. Cubsy is sitting down for a drink. They locked in Hook Point so they could stop this from happening. They just let it happen. He fully reset his mana. They get significantly far ahead on cooldowns, and they start to put the boys in a position where they're going to make more mistakes. A lot's on the line here.
Definitely a lot on the line for the boys. Super Frogs has just been looking so good in this series so far, really showing why they are considered the best team in North America, the #1 point earners. What are the boys going to be able to do? Gorecki trades out the Life Cocoon, a huge defensive cooldown. Chun-Li looking pretty healthy now with Touch of Karma now available. He should be able to keep himself alive. Smoke Bomb gets dropped out. Kidney Shot onto Chun-Li. Do they have the damage to push him over? Doesn't seem like it just yet. And actually, Cubsy, I think he snuck away for a drink. And that mana lead you would expect the Mistweaver to have all of a sudden is in favor of Super Frogs.
All right, let's see if they can do it. Can the Super Frogs just clean sweep the finals against the boys? The pressure is on. Wave the Crane available for Gorecki. He could make a power play, top off his team at the same time, but he needs to avoid crowd control whilst engaging. Chun-Li gets stun locked in center field. 3 members are low. What are you going to do, Gorecki? Wave the Crane. Let's see if he gets denied. He trinkets out a blind, connects a big heal. No denial on that trinket just yet. A half-yard fear. Now with no crowd control, Gorecki's going to do a ton of damage. Chanimal knows that, so he's going to gate away and try and avoid it. But then Snuts gets swapped to as he was left behind. Has to trade out evasion. That way of the Crane was definitely a big push. Now there's kill potential on Snuts later on.
Yeah, definitely a vulnerable target on that Rogue. Interrupt onto Gorecki, nicely done by Chanimal. Chun-Li still is the main focus point for Super Frogs in this matchup, but Gorecki with no trinket. If he pushes in with Way of the Crane, they might be able to make a big swap on him, but it's Chanimal who's in a lot of trouble. Catches a huge heal, I believe that was his Hellstone, in order to stabilize and stay alive. Cubsy now pushing in, looking for crowd control onto Gorecki. Chun-Li forced to trade out that touch of Karma, who's seen the triple Maledict pushes from Super Frogs in the last game. If they can get that again onto Chun-Li, it's danger time for the boys.
Yeah, both healers evening out on mana. Chun-Li locked in another kidney shot. Chanimal raining down pressure. Multiple Chaos Bolts casted. Maledict soaking up heals. Turbo Fist parry on Snuts. Snuts just retreats away from that. Chun-Li is still low. Way of the Crane available, but Gorecki does not want to get crowd controlled on it, so he's trying to hold out, but how much longer can he hold out? His entire team is just whittling away. Now caught into a stun. Glider Safeguard may not be enough. He gets protected by the Ring of Peace. Enough time to connect Life Cocoon. Ursul's Vortex pulls Gorecki out of the Ring of Peace. Nice move by Cubsy. Gorecki's only got enough mana for one more Way of the Crane. They've got to get a kill with this push. They're not committing it. Gorecki's still now finally popping the Way of the Crane. They have to get a kill with this.
Yeah, but Gorecki, he doesn't have a trinket. Now caught into Immortal Coil. If Snuts can land a kidney shot, Gorecki could easily fall. Snuts getting swapped to Faint Iron Bark. Should deny the kill for now, but Snuts in a lot of trouble. Smexon's still all over him. Gorecki has the Way of the Crane just fading. He did manage to top off his team, but look, Chun-Li's got no defensives left. He's trying to roll away to safety, manages to do so. Super Frost completely stable. Cubsy in the meantime sneaking away for a drink. While Gorecki's almost completely tapped on mana, Cubsy does manage to regenerate just a little bit, but he does not want to fall behind on healing.
All right, Gorecki gets stun locked again. Snuts is really putting the pressure onto Gorecki, trying to feel out if potentially his Mistweaver is a weak link. Let's see if they can get it. Triple stun by Chanimal. Good setup. Snuts is moving in with tons of damage. That's a triple Garrote. Tons of damage on 3 members. Chun-Li dips low. How's he going to respond? Life Cocoon onto Chun-Li, but now that won't be available for Gorecki if Snuts make a swap. Pressure still onto Chanimal. Double Mortal Coil away. May not be enough. He's getting crushed underneath. Just pure damage, raw pressure. The boys look to close it out through Unending Resolve. Ring of Peace denies Cubsy's heal. He has to walk all the way around, manages to reconnect finally. Gorecki now under pressure. Next kidney shot on Gorecki could close the game. They need to crowd control Smexon at the same time. They go for a fear. They get interrupted. They need to crowd control Smexon. Any magic zone will protect Gorecki. Snuts is looking for, so surprised to not see him Vendetta on Gorecki. Shadow step over, instead using the Vendetta into maybe Touch of Karma. Bit of a bold move on Snuts' part. Both teams are totally tapped, but the boys stay in it.
Yeah, Smexon low on health. Chun-Li, no defensive cooldowns left. Gorecki looking to make the final push. And Chanimal, he's in a lot of trouble. No defensives, caught into the leg sweep. Cubsy, what are you gonna do? He's trying to sit down for a drink, get any bit of mana, but he just doesn't have the time. And Chanimals will fall. Super Frogs falls in game number 3. The boys put a point on the board.
How much of this pressure is based off of the fact that we see the switch to the monk? I think that's the first question I have here, Zico.
I think most of it actually is at the back of the monk, because it's not just that the monk adds damage, it's that the monk is doing all of that damage, becoming a threat that you have to deal with, so it's soaking up, you know, kidney shots and soaking up fears, which allows Smexon, of course, to steal some of those fears. It just adds extra pressure, and it also is just topping up the entire team very mana cost efficiently when you actually do get that Way of the Crane push off and you actually get to work with it. But the problem is Gorecki here in his last bit of mana, Cubsy, he wanted to sit down for the drink. Immediately there's a fear onto him, but he does manage to put that pressure up, and that fear could have just as easily been casted onto Chun-Li, could have just as easily been on one of the DPS members, and the game is just overall slower with the Druid because of that. And when the other thing is as well, the monk doesn't need to drink. If you play it on a small map where the druid has to go and drink and the monk doesn't, that alone just gives you big opportunities to go in for that Way of the Crane and force the druid to stop drinking and fall behind. So the monk is for sure the key to success here for them, and I'm just kind of surprised why we didn't see it sooner.
Yeah, I think one of the first questions that you ask after that is, how do you feel he actually performed? How do you feel that Gorecki performed on the monk?
I feel like he can perform on the monk, but it seems to me like he's lacking some confidence on the monk, because he seems reluctant to locking it in some of the matchups where you would expect it. And even in the start of this game, in the start of the game where he locked it in against the move, like those games were just complete stomps in the beginning, and we even saw kills happen very early on, which is very unusual for this composition. And if they survived that first initial push with the Infernals, he looked okay on it. His mana management seemed fine. He seemed to just, you know, go in when he needed to. Not really any big complaints on his Monk. Just be more comfortable, have more confidence, Gorecki, and you should be able to win these matchups at least, where you are the one who is locking into the composition that you already know.
Now, the other question is how much are they really going to have these games that are comfortable, that do favor compositions like this, when now we know all the momentum going to be going in the opposite direction? Bigger maps potentially on the horizon.
Yeah, they have to win 2 swing matches at this point in order to have an advantage in game number 7. Definitely backs against the wall here for the boys. And honestly, what I want to see from the boys in this particular matchup is to bring in Thugonomics, just no matter what. I think on the large map with the Destruction Warlock, I think, well, they don't listen to me. This is just like, for me, this is not a great matchup for the boys. Super Frogs going to be feeling very confident, bringing in Wealthy Man on the mage with the Destruction Warlock and the Restoration Druid, and we see how that plays out before. The boys, they did have solid pressure going after Wealthy Man, but I still just feel like this is a losing matchup.
Yeah, I mean, even Wildcard Gaming were very reluctant to locking this composition in on Tolveron, and for good reason. The Resto Druid would just outperform it on this map because it's so big. We spoke a little bit about how you can be behind that pillar and you can actually get those drinks off as the Resto Druid healing the cleave. This would be the matchup where I would expect Gorecki to actually lock in the Druid.
Yeah.
Because, so on the small maps, I want to see Gorecki on the Monk, but when they're picking blind on a large map like Tolveron, I mean, there's nothing stopping Super Frogs from going Shadow Priest Mage, Elemental Mage, Warlock Mage, most likely going to be what we see. And it's such a hard task to beat that composition. I want to see the Druid on this map with the Feral Affinity. That's where Gorecki has looked the most comfortable, and this is the map where he can actually pull it off. They can allow Cubsy to drink, but they can't stop Gorecki from drinking because the pillars are so large. You go behind the pillar and you sit down there to drink. Anyone who comes in to stop you, you can grip him in, and you're going to have a lot of pressure, and it's just not worth the risk to shut down those drinks if you are Super Frog. So on a map like this, he can actually get away with it, whereas on the small map, if he locks in the Druid, he's not going to get away with trying to drink. Instead, we're going to see what we saw basically on Dalaran, where every time he did sit down for the drinks, there was so much pressure coming from Chanimal and from Snuts, and we are going to see the Mage-locked Druid locked in from the Super Frogs. Not a big surprise. Super Frogs have huge advantage in this matchup.
Well, to go back to what you were saying about the boys as well, when we hear the opinion of the desk right now, folks, ultimately, even if this composition is the one that does get locked in on this large map, you don't expect to see Gorecki, who's been hesitant to play the Monk, play the Monk here. It seems like Druid, you're going to be able to get away and get those drinks. It seems like Cubsy should be able to outperform him regardless of comp right now. Then you actually get down to the composition, and we can hear as well a lot of asks to see Thugonomics used here, a potentially strong situation for him. And now the Super Frog's going to have a holiday, Sid. They're going to be able to have Chanimal and Wealthy Man come in with this strong Wizard setup.
Yeah, I think this is a mistake by the boys, as already pointed out. I mean, we've already seen it happen. When Looney went in on the Feral Affinity Druid, they were able to overcome the Wizard Cleave composition. I think it's a bit different, the Ellie Mage, than the Destruction Frost Mage. It's still probably really difficult, but Gorecki would have been better off, I think, blind locking the Druid on Tolveron as well, in agreement with what Zico has already stated. So it maybe just comes down to inexperience in this type of scenario. I mean, I would say that Looney was picking every time the correct healer in the right position on the right maps, and now Gorecki is just hesitant and then maybe just thinks, well, the Mistweaver's better overall, but it can't be on the big map. It just simply can't. I think the Druid would have been better in this position.
Well, the Super Frogs finally going to be able to use their advantage to the fullest. They set this one up. They go on the large map. They get Chanimals and Wealthy Man ready to fire some big beefy bolts and some frost. We're going to see if that's going to be enough to put them on match point.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to see exactly what happens. Wealthy Man has been opting into a Frost Bolt heavy build, so I think if Chun-Li and Smexen really focus on Wealthy Man, they will be able to really limit his damage, but then you have Chanimal, who's just able to free cast in this matchup. Once again, Gorecki caught into the Seduce, so Chanimal's running that Succubus, is going to have instant crowd control that he can get out on a Gorecki as long as he has good management of his pet, which he definitely does. So that's good crowd control available for Super Frogs, and it's going to make it difficult for the boys. I think Gurecki on that Mistweaver Monk is super vulnerable to Polymorphs and Fears and the Seduce coming in from Super Frogs. So the boys are going to have to make sure they're doing a great job with their offense and their defense, and Gurecki's really going to have to pick his moments to push in with that Way of the Crane.
Chanimal looking to counter-engage on the boys' big push towards Wealthy Man. They've got complete control of the battlefield, utilizing that Polymorph and Fear diminishing return effectively to deny the initial attack from the boys. Smexon still could be the X factor with that Dark Simulacrum if he's able to steal some of these incoming crowd controls and then utilize them on the Cubsy to then overwhelm another member of the team. Chanimal getting Ring of Peace on a cast. No touch of death committed just yet. We do see Dark Soul activated. Chanimal wants to ramp. He's managed to work through a lot of interrupts, although now Ring of Peace annoyingly punting him on his next Chaos Bolt. Chun-Li's got Touch of Death. That explodes over into Chanimal, but gets denied by Cubsy's Iron Bark. Mana evens out, but on Tolvaron Arena, it will be so much easier for Cubsy to be able to drink and regenerate mana, and Super Frogs have just set themselves up so well, winning the blind pick, and then also winning the counter pick on Dalaran.
Yeah, I just think this is a really difficult situation for them to be in, but if anyone could do it, I would give the boys credit. Smexon, Chun-Li, and Gurecki have been doing a really good job with this Windwalker Death Knight composition throughout this entire season, so we'll have to see if they can overcome the adversity in this matchup. It's not going to be easy, especially on Tolvaron. It's just such a large map. Wealthy Man and Chanimal are going to be able to kite into the open, and that basically means when Wealthy Man's in the open like this, both Chun-Li and Smexon are going to be available. Just get spam feared, Polymorph, rooted, Nova, damaged. And I think eventually the Super Frogs will be able to overwhelm the boys with all-out pressure. For the boys, it's going to be about picking their moment when they can get really aggressive. But so far, you can see Gurecki's mana, it's actually not looking too good. Cubsy has had a lot of freedom on this large map to escape, look for drinks when he really needs to. Wealthy Man now getting aggressive with Icy Veins. He sees that Smexon and Chun-Li, they want to get damage rolling onto Chanimal. Are they going to be able to do it? Wealthy Man looking at counter pressure, potentially looking for a Polymorph as well. He sneaks it in onto Gurecki. Anti-Magic Zone gets traded out. Chanimal topped off. Things are looking good for the Super Frogs.
Things are looking good for the Super Frogs here, forcing multiple defensive cooldowns with 2 members locked down in crowd control. Chun-Li takes a huge hit, down to half. Gurecki with no adequate response in terms of cooldowns. If he gets interrupted, Super Frogs might close it out. Gurecki rolls in. He's going to be exposed to crowd control. A risky maneuver. He decides to move out, but there's still no good answer defensively. Chun-Li has to run and duck for cover.
Yeah, getting behind the pillar, he will be safe, but now he's got to be feeling really vulnerable. No Transcendence for another 35 seconds or Touch of Karma. And we saw what happened on game number 1. Cubsy had a beautiful Ursula's Vortex, which kept Chun-Li in place when he did Transcendence away. Smexon's been doing a good job getting pressure on Wealthy Man, but now caught into a Nova. Cubsy has adequate time to catch everyone up. Innervate now going to be available. I think it's likely Cubsy trades that out soon, as both Chanimal and Wealthy Man are under fire. And if he can get that out, he gets very mana-efficient healing, where he can top off his team, but it looks like he's going to be holding on to it for the time being. Chun-Li now with Touch of Karma, going to be feeling safe. Infernals get dropped out. Chanimal finds 1 Chaos Bolt. Chun-Li getting low again. Gurecki positioning very far away, and Gurecki really hasn't had any moments so far where he's pushed in, really assisted his team with damage. He's trying to play as conservative as possible. You can't really blame them. I think for the boys, it's going to be about an all-in push later in dampening, but it's a double-edged sword because if you stay out too long in dampening, you can fall behind really quickly.
Yeah, Chun-Li spending a lot of time in midfield, now exchanging that Touch of Karma, very important cooldown for his survival. He may opt to just retreat away as he is currently positioned at the pillar. This is another disadvantage to the comp that the boys have brought, is that they can get spread out and isolated quite easily. Gurecki gets clotheslined as he tried to cross midfield. Chun-Li is still in trouble at low health. Cubsy moves in, secures a bash. All 3 members of the boys in crowd control, and Chun-Li's just getting blown out. Tons of damage. Diffuse Magic, super effective against this composition, but a huge overlap as well with the Way of the Crane. Now feared on it. Chun-Li still in trouble. Ray of Frost is pinning him down. Smexon denies it. Chun-Li ducking around the corner, desperately trying to stay alive. Gurecki still not able to connect with that Way of the Crane. 3 fears completely denies it, but Chun-Li survives. Gurecki still needs to deal with an interrupt from Wealthy Man. A counterspell available. He may have to just Life Cocoon to avoid it. If he gets locked without activating it, they could lose. He doesn't want to risk it. Activates the Life Cocoon, then gets counterspelled. Safe maneuver from Gurecki.
Yeah, really intelligently done, but Chun-Li's still in a lot of trouble. He cannot be feeling too safe. Gurecki really hasn't been able to use that Way of the Crane efficiently just yet, and that's why we wanted to see him on that Restoration Druid. If there's any map where he should be the Restoration Druid, it should be this one. This gets crowd controlled, and getting Nova value out of that really important cooldown that Mistweavers have. Way of the Crane. Mana once again. Cubsy, look at his positioning. He's just across the battlefield. He knows if he can keep Wealthy Man and Chanimal alive, they are going to inevitably win this game. Now Chun-Li in midfield once again, taking quite a bit of damage here from Chanimal. This is the Icy Vein from Wealthy Man. He wants to get really aggressive. It's a 3-minute timer, increasing the haste of the Frost Mage. That allows them to do a lot of damage, especially with the build Wealthy Man's playing. You can see just Frostbolt after Frostbolt. Greki moves in, gets a double leg sweep. Asphyxiate stun onto Cubsy. The boy's looking to get aggressive. Yeah, Wealthy Man in trouble, but with Temporal Shield ticking away, it's soaking all this damage and will heal it back if he can hold out a bit longer. Now bouncing back to full health. Chun-Li in trouble as his healers lock down crowd control. Double stun. Chanimal connects the Chaos Bolt. Diffuse Magic stalls it out for a bit longer, but now Greki once again needs to deal with Counterspell. He doesn't fake it. Chun-Li's in trouble. Where is he going to go? He needs to get away from the fight. He can't handle this much damage. Transcendence around the corner. No one able to chase after him, but deeper into dampening. This swap to Smexen will net a kill. Huge Chaos Bolt hits Smexen. He's going to trade out. Way of the Crane gets activated. Greki wants to make a push. Gets denied by these polymorphs of Wealthy Man. Chanimal still needs to fear him right at the end of it. Looks for it, gets stunned on it. Doesn't get the fear. Has to exchange unending resolve to survive this push. The boys managed to get through that major defensive objective. Maybe they can overcome the disadvantage if they can get another Way of the Crane push like that onto Chanimal soon. Yeah, one thing we really haven't mentioned is Chanimal, he's actually opted out of the demonic circle, so he doesn't have that extra mobility, and I think that makes him very susceptible to an all-in push from Gareki, Chun-Li, and Smexen. At some point in the game, Chun-Li is running the Tiger Eye Brew, so if he can build that buff up for long enough, he's going to have a huge amount of damage where he can shred through a lot of the health and defensives that Chanimal has at his disposal. Chanimal gates away, looking for a Chaos Bolt, manages to find one. Triple Shadow Fury. Chun-Li getting a little low. Second Chaos Bolt lands. Touch of Karma trades out. Interrupt onto Gareki. Now the boy's in a little bit of trouble. Chun-Li very low. Gareki has not been able to get through these counter spells. Oh, no. Tons of damage. Chun-Li barely gets around the corner. Wealthy Man can't follow him, but these counter spells from Wealthy Man have been key to the Super Frogs developing momentum. Now Smexen gets swapped too. Huge Chaos Bolt, gets anti-magic shield soaked up. Chun-Li gets feared on the reconnect. Wealthy Man in a good position to set up Chanimal to free cast. Tons of Chaos Bolts potentially raining in here shortly. Greki's got Way of the Crane. He's got mana in the tank. They can make a big push. They can make things happen, but Cubsy regenerated all of his mana, so it's going to come down to two big pushes from the boys. Can Gareki connect with that Way of the Crane? Because if he can't, Super Frogs move to match point. Yeah, Chun-Li's stuck in the middle of the field right now. Chanimal finds a fear. Chun-Li gets out of line of sight. He trades out his trinket. So now look, Chun-Li, no Touch of Karma, no Diffuse Magic, no Trinket. Very vulnerable here. It's going to be up to Gareki to keep him alive with that Life Cocoon, but at this point in the game, when Chun-Li runs away, it's easy for Wealthy Man and Chanimal to start getting pressure on Smexen. He can no longer self-sustain nearly as much, but Chanimal realizing he needs support. He actually is playing the Demonic Circle. I was wrong about that, so he does have that added mobility to see it placed down, and that makes Chanimal a very slippery target for the boys to actually make those all-in pushes too. That was a Way of the Crane push. They didn't get anything from it. Now they've only got one more Way of the Crane push. They've got a significant mana disadvantage. This is looking bad for the boys. Super Frogs are going to move to match point, and there's still Ashamane's Fall left in the map pool. They need to overcome the disadvantage, whether or not it's here on Tolvaron or whether it's on Ashamane's. I think on Ashamane's, Gareki should make the adaptation and bring in his Druid rather than the Mistweaver. But maybe they somehow managed to pull this off. 19 seconds away from another Way of the Crane attempt from Gareki. Chun-Li has enough defense to make it to that point, most certainly, unless he chokes and makes a mistake, which is entirely possible here. We're in the grand finals. These players have been playing out an incredibly long tournament. Fatigue is certainly going to be setting in, and the likelihood for mistakes rises as a result. I think that's definitely true. Something to keep in mind when watching this game. Smexen now caught into a polymorph 3-on-1 situation. Chun-Li having to run away again. He's been doing a great job making sure his Transcendence is always in a favorable position where he can escape. Wealthy Man blinks in, full polymorph secured on Gareki, bash on Smexen. Wealthy Man channeling out a Ray of Frost. Chun-Li denies with the Ring of Peace. Very nicely done. Wealthy Man realizing he could be in some trouble, trades out the Temporal Shield to soak some of this Windwalker damage. Chun-Li has Wealthy Man gating away. Frost Mage with a gateway is incredibly slippery for a melee cleave to train down. If you look, Wealthy Man has all his ice blocks. Doesn't want to throw away the game. Forced into the first ice block of the game.
Snapped. Did he? No, he didn't.
No, he didn't.
Okay, cold snapped. afterwards. Now they're in a good position to win. Gorecki doesn't have enough mana to use Way of the Crane again, so that big push of damage won't be available. They have to rely on potentially Smexon's Dark Simulacrum to steal some crowd control.
Chanimal.
Will he fall? Chanimal just needs to hold on a tad bit longer. Demonic Circle with Frozen Orb in the entrance to the room, denying Smexon's reconnect. Is the Demonic Gateway available? Chanimal needs to get away. All three members are right next to him. He cannot stay in that position. Demonic gates to safety. Wealthy Man follows up with huge burst. Big Chaos Bolt. A little bit of a disrespect on Smexon's part. I was really expecting an anti-magic zone on that exchange. Close call. 0 mana left in the tank. This is where we need to see Chanimal go to one side, Wealthy Man go to the other, pin the boys down behind the pillar, and finally finish them off.
Yeah, but Cubsy in that situation, he's able to sit down and drink. They need to make an offensive push, but Chanimal is there to back him up. Triple Shadow Fear, full polymorph secured onto Gorecki. Smexon pushing forward with his anti-magic shell, but he's vulnerable. Caught into a bash. Ring of Peace gets used to deny some of Chanimal's damage as well as crowd control, but ultimately the Succubus does find Gorecki, seduce his cast out. Gorecki forced to trade out the life cocoon to keep Smexon alive. And it looks like Super Frogs, they have all the momentum. They have full mana. Cubsy doing a great job in this matchup so far. Interrupt secured onto Gorecki. Smexon getting low, and the boys in full retreat.
Between these teams in the grand finals, it's a battle for the #1 seeding in the North American region. And if we look at the long haul, it's also a potential qualification to the World Finals. You want to accumulate as many points as possible, so multiple first place finishes going to be a likelihood to increase your chances at that. Super Frogs have the lead off the blind pick, and then the counter comp win as well. They've set themselves up effectively for victory. Gorecki is doing his best to just scrape as much mana as possible. If he can get another Way of the Crane, he could potentially push the Super Frogs over. Can Gorecki just get the tiniest bit more mana for that Way of the Crane? It's looking more like he's going to be able to do it.
This is dangerous for Super Frogs. They're pushing in. They're getting really aggressive. Wealthy Man doesn't have an ice block for another 3 minutes. Chanimal, look at him. He's playing on top of his Demonic Circle. He's trying to get pressure. He's trying to pull aggro from the team of the boys. But at 44% dampening, anything can happen. You cannot allow a Windwalker Death Knight to have this much uptime. Chanimal realizing the situation. He runs away. Wealthy Man doesn't want to push in. He's got the Icy Veins up, but if he gets too aggressive, he could easily fall in this matchup. Once again, Cubsy going to be sitting down for a drink, looking to completely reset his mana. We're at 46% dampening. What options do the boys have available? Wealthy Man looking to be that best option. No ice blocks for another 3 minutes. If he gets death gripped in, caught into a stun, he might just fall too far behind for Cubsy to really be able to recover his hit points. But at the same time, the boys, they can't just sit behind the pillar. All of a sudden, Blizzard damage really adds up, Frozen Orb damage really adds up, and the boys are falling behind.
It all comes down to one final Way of the Crane. Can Gorecki connect to Wealthy Man and take him out? Because if he can't, they're just slowly rotting down. They grip him in. This is it. They have to go for it. Where's the Way of the Crane, Gorecki? You need it. He pops it. They have to connect. Gorecki's connecting, but nobody else is. Gorecki then gets seduced away. It ends up breaking. Trinket to Polymorph. Trinket to Polymorph and get the kill. Why are they going after Chanimal?
I don't know. Chanimal drops the Infernal. Big counter pressure available for Super Frogs. Chun-Li caught in midfield. No touch of karma for another few seconds. Gorecki, unfortunately, not getting too much done. Chun-Li could easily fall. Ray of Frost being channeled by Wealthy Man. Touch of karma coming in the nick of time, but that Chaos Bolt going to be huge for Chanimal. Chun-Li portals away. Wealthy Man blinks in. Now Smexon caught all alone at 54% dampening. Death Strike's not going to be doing too much. He still has the anti-magic zone, but he's not trading it out. He needs to drop it. Might be far too late. Gorecki pushing in. This is the last push from the boys, but I don't think they're going to be able to do it.
Oh, he stole a Polymorph. Cubsy trinkets that. They know they've got the game in the bag. That Way of the Crane was the last chance for the boys as they are getting dismantled here on Tolvaron Arena. This is exactly what the Super Frogs want, and they put the boys on match point.
Monk, let's talk about that first. We go to the large map. Ultimately, we see Gorecki, who seemed to be relatively uncomfortable on the Monk several times in a row, who does switch on hook point, manages to get that win when they are there. When they go to Tolvaron, though, we see the Monk again. Zico, did you like this choice after we see it in practice?
Well, I liked how he played it, but I don't think that I like the actual pick because, once again, he is always going to be in a situation where Cubsy, he can just kick back, drink, get full mana, and Gorecki himself, he's not going to have that same luxury because he's playing that Monk. There's going to be a pet on him, forcing him to stay in combat. They're playing Horde as well, so he's never going to be able to like Shadow Melt, drop aggro, and get a drink off the same way a Druid would. So Honestly, I like the Druid pick a lot more here because at this point in the game, he would still have full mana. He would still be able to go in, stun up one of the DPS, and do it in a much safer manner than activating a Way of the Crane and then crossing the map, risking getting crowd controlled on his way there. I like the pick, just not on this map. I like on the big map, rest the Druid, just like Looney played it. On small maps, go for the Monk, and that should be their win condition. If they can manage to win with the rest of it on a big map, which in theory is a little bit easier, all of a sudden they can take that swing match advantage, and we can start talking about the comeback.
Big silver lining, though. I don't think you have any apprehension to play it now. I feel like Gurecki's proven that he can. Maybe any of those nerves or any of that hesitance is going to be out the window. A little bit late to get that out, but now I think we can safely assume that he feels comfortable in the Monk. He has looked good on it. The pick itself was the problem, not the actual execution, Sid.
Yeah, it looked solid. I mean, other than the last push, that seemed kind of like a debacle. Maybe they were just like, all right, we can't catch Wealthy Man, detour, Windwalker DK train just turns direction, but they go after the target that has the most defense left. That's why I was just like, at that point, why did you even start that attack if you're just going to go onto a target that had more than enough answers to survive? But it's so difficult at that point because everything comes down to that last push. So
yeah, I mean, sometimes already when you get to that position, though, do you think it's safe to say maybe a little bit desperate? Usually the desperate decisions we make in life look the ugliest.
I mean, that one definitely was out there because I was expecting them to actually be able to close it out and kill Wealthy Man. They managed to just scrape it together, get enough mana in the tank, and then, all right, let's go, it's time. Oh, this didn't work. And then everything falls apart after that. So this is why we don't see the Mistweaver. The Druid doesn't bring as much of a big hit as the Way of the Crane, but it brings consistent damage throughout the fight with the Feral Affinity. And it brings more mana on the large map as well, so which is why we saw Looney playing it in the last match. Blade's Edge Arena locked in for the boys. So this is to try and counteract the Wizard comp. Gurecki cannot lock Mistweaver in on this map. There is no points of line of sight if they play on the top of the bridge. I'm interested to see how the boys play this out. If they do hit and runs, try and hide underneath the bridge in between their stun locks and then go up top for big pushes. But the Super Frogs also may just blind lock Rogue Warlock. I think on this map that makes more sense.
Okay, and what do you think that we actually do see here as far as compositions are concerned, Ben?
Well, we've seen Destruction Warlocks do quite well on Blade's Edge Arena, so for the boys, maybe this is an opportunity for them to finally bring in Thugonomics on the Destruction Warlock. It really depends on what Super Frogs is going to lock in. I think the boys' main fear is that they don't want to have a Windwalker versus Assassination Rogue showdown because Snuts on the Assassination Rogue versus Chun-Li on the Windwalker Monk. If it does go to a Destruction Warlock Druid kind of mirror, I think the Assassination Rogue pulls out ahead in terms of just overall lockdown on the Warlock, so that would give them a big advantage in that mirror. So the boys, they're going to be locking in. Double Monk, Death Knight, once again, trying to take down Super Frogs.
And this is one of those matchups where we do want to see the Monk as well, Zico.
Yeah, this is exactly what I want to see from both teams. Roguelock Druid from Super Frogs on the blind, Magelock Druid when it's a large map and it's their counter pick, and then from the boys, Monk on a small map. You can use the ZY axis, you can use the Rings of Peace to knock people off. I like it. The Death Grip as well, going to be able to be used in similar fashion. We saw them do similar things on Dalaran as well, where Smexen would grip someone to the open, and then Chun-Li would just knock him down. So more stuff like that, and I think that they are compositionally advantaged because Cubsy won't be able to drink on this map for Super Frogs. So if everything goes according to the script, the boys should win this one, then we should go to Ashermans after that.
I want to bounce off of that, though, because I actually feel like the biggest threat that we have seen from the Super Frogs so far, I don't disagree with what you're saying at all, but the biggest threat that we've seen from Super Frogs is they do have some solid game on these small maps when they are bringing Snuts on that Rogue and they're bringing Chan on that Warlock. And one of the big reasons I feel like that maybe is happening is because this might be their comfort pick at this point. So as much as they're disadvantaged in this matchup, we've seen them in the disadvantaged matchup still look at full power.
Yeah, I mean, Super Frogs, this composition, obviously one of their main and best, most practiced compositions. Snuts on the Assassination Rogue with Chanimal on the Destruction Warlock and Cubsy on the Druid. This is something they've had great success with. in the season, and we know that this matchup, the way it's played out both in Europe and North America, it seems like the composition the boys have, the Windwalker Death Knight, is favored, but you can easily punish mistakes with the Roguelock Druid, the Assassination Rogue, and the Destruction Warlock. Very punishing. So the boys should have this if they play it perfectly, but if they don't, if they mess up, I think the Super Frogs is going to pounce all over that.
Yeah, I think that's very important to mention. Also, I mean, even if you do look a little bit earlier in the day, Sid, we saw both of these teams play against another Lock and Rogue, and you know, they all went to Game 5, and that was a team that's probably less experienced than you would say the Super Frogs with the composition, but they're able to go toe-to-toe with Super Frogs, which goes to show how good they are, and they're able to go very far with the boys as well, but Super Frogs only need one more win.
Yep, Super Frogs have set themselves up well here. Even though the boys compositionally are advantaged with a small map, they can deny the Druid from drinking, and they can overwhelm with Way of the Crane. It isn't to say that the Super Frogs are totally out of it. They can win this, and they have won on small maps already in the series, so the boys need to win 3 in a row. They're only going to get their map pick, I believe, this one more time. Otherwise, it's going to be Ashamane's. From there, it's a little bit shaky. I think the maps don't exactly totally favor the Super Frogs, but
just go Ashmane's Mugambala, easy.
I don't know if it's easy. I mean, I don't know if Mugambala is easy. I think Ashamane and Tolvaron are the best maps for the Super Frogs. While Mugambala may be the largest, there's also just really good points of line of sight all over the place that you can get to. So, while we all want to see it because it completes the prophecy, I don't think...
It doesn't complete it on next game. It will be after.
Yeah, but we will get to that. It will happen.
It will happen. If the boys wins here, we will see Mugambala.
Okay, there we go. I heard it from Zico. I think that one of the major things is here, though, is you're just scared on small maps of Super Frogs right now, and that is such a dominant position for them to be in. Obviously, it's not going to be easy to take down 3 wins against a top caliber team. That's not an easy thing to do. It's a scary situation to be in when you are in a best of 7, and also we have to note how big this could be for the Super Frogs, how much they really do start to inch ahead. They'll have 540 points. When you look at Europe, obviously the points are going to be separate between these two regions, but currently in Europe, the top team has 540 points. That's Method Black. We could see that mirrored by the Super Frogs as well if they can take this, and the boys starting to get left behind slowly, just slowly. I mean, Method Orange is still really in range of second place as well. That's something that the boys do need to be thinking about.
Yeah, out of the 5 cups we've now had, they got second place 3 times, so that's where most of their points come from. That's where all their points come from. So, I mean, they're still in contention as one of the best teams in North America. I just want to really see them polish up the compositions that they have available and try to focus on bringing Sam I Am in some role or position on their team. It seems like he's been focusing mostly on the Moonkin, but it just, in this current meta, just doesn't seem that valuable. So I think moving forward, depending on what happens in 8-1-5, he needs to be looking to add a little bit more diversity to the classes he has available for their team.
He's one of those guys that you look at and it's like 8.15, you're playing everything. Like, let's figure out what you can actually do. They need him. They need him super bad. I think he's going to be one of the most important players on that team, and especially when you do look at Method, they need to have a strong start with the new patch. Obviously, it's the end of this season, but they need to have a strong start there for the rest of the year because you can't really afford completely whiffing that many times. And they're like the one team that is in the top 3 that did have that whiff, right? They recovered from it fantastically, but they don't make it to top 8 in the first week. That's a very scary thing. That is a lot of points that you miss. You figure at the very, even 60 points. Think about how big that is when you look at teams like the boys and Super Frogs. Think about how big 60 points can actually be. Even when you have these two teams in first and second multiple weeks, you still see the first place team getting that 20-point advantage. So if you're already 60 points behind and you keep losing to the same team in the grand finals, it's so impressive and difficult to get to the grand finals already, but you can't catch up. It's just impossible when you have such a point discrepancy. But we will see here if it is going to be Super Frogs being the most dominant team in North America. Will they find 540 points, or will the boys manage to stay alive a little bit longer? They got a small map to do it, and they got Gorecki on the advantaged healer. Will will it be enough?
Yep, the boys have set themselves up for success here on Blades Edge Arena, but the Super Frogs could still overcome it and just wipe them out in the grand finals. This is cup number 5 out of 6 in the spring season. We are coming to a close for the qualifications to that LAN final, the LAN Spring Finals for the Arena World Championship Series. We will decide the Elite Four from North America and Europe on that 6th cup, but already we see teams establishing a significant lead. If the Super Frogs can take this championship, they will then tie Method Black in the European region as the #1 point earners in the world.
Yeah, Snuts left behind a little bit. Both ring apiece committed by Chun-Li and Gorecki. That was knocking Chanimal off the side of this bridge, allowing Chun-Li and Smexon a little bit of breathing room, especially during the Infernals. But Chun-Li already trading out his trinket, as well as his Touch of Karma and Diffuse Magic. Are they going to be able to just all-in him? Gorecki trades out Life Cocoon to keep him alive, keep him in the fight. They're looking to reverse the pressure, but Chanimal, he's not afraid. Trades out the Unending Resolve. They want to take Chun-Li down. Portal's back up top as Snuts jumps down. Good kiting here by Chun-Li, but still such a vulnerable target.
Yep, definitely a close call for Chun-Li, but Chanimal as well. Chun-Li gets bursted. How's Gorecki going to respond? There's not much defense. Chun-Li still just getting destroyed here on Blades Edge Arena, which does benefit the Destruction Warlock. There's not very many pillars to hide. You get to free cast a lot if you can get the melee off of your face. Ring of Peace knocks Chanimal off the side. Nice play. Cubsy's trying to get back in line of sight. Manages to reconnect downstairs. Double Garrote boosted damage there from Snuts' Vanish. Could be an opportunity for the Super Frogs to tear in.
Yep, full kitty shot on Chun-Li. That was a beautiful play. What they did was they used a Ring of Peace to knock down Cubsy. As soon as Cubsy ran all the way around and back up, they knocked off Chanimal, denying a lot of heals there from Cubsy. But Cubsy's going to take this opportunity to sit down for a drink, completely recover his mana, but he needs to be careful. He can't afford to do that for too long. Double Mortal Coil coming in. What are the boys going to do? Chun-Li gets the Life Cocoon, and that's one of the great things about the Mistweaver Monk is you have that safety net with that really low cooldown. Life Cocoon, double leg sweep onto Chanimal and Snuts, paralysis into asphyxiate stun on Cubsy. But Super Frogs, they're looking healthy.
All right, Super Frogs, see what you can do. You're on match point right now. You've got good momentum. Gorecki may end up making a mistake. Snuts secures an interrupt, an opportunity, but Chanimal's is low as well. Both teams keep battling it out. Chanimal recovers now. Wave of the Crane gets activated. Feared instantly by Chanimal. Good denial. They need another one. Kidney shot now denies Gorecki's Wave of the Crane. Do they have any more? Doesn't look like it. Wave of the Crane's going to connect at least for a couple of kicks, and that could be devastating. Snuts the target here. Trying to force more cooldowns from multiple members. Throw Cubsy for a loop. Tap him on mana maybe, but Cubsy is still ahead in that regard.
What? Chun-Li trades out the Touch of Karma with the anti-magic zone. A lot of defense used by the boys, but you can't really blame Smexon in that situation. That was the Dark Soul coming in from Chanimal. The big defensive cooldown overlap. Once again, Chun-Li very vulnerable. Uses the Diffuse Magic, trying to trade out the Touch of Karma, or Touch of Death, actually. Looking to get really aggressive on Chanimal. And keep in mind, there is no Iron Bark. There is no Unending Resolve for the team of Super Frogs. The boys, they want to make a final push here onto Chanimal. Will they be able to take him down? Doesn't look like they have the damage available just yet. Snuts looking to reverse the pressure with a kidney shot onto Chun-Li. Vendetta is rolling, and Chun-Li has to run away.
All right, Chun-Li, what are you going to do? How are you going to stay in it? You're on match point. Any mistake going to cost the entire tournament. Big hit on Chun-Li with that Chaos Bolt. Looking to see crowd. Infernals have landed. Channel wants to end this. Tons of pressure. Chun-Li gets stunned. He trinkets, but he doesn't combo it with any defense. This could be a mistake from Chun-Li that the Super Frogs can punish later on. In the meantime, it will develop momentum onto Chanimal. Nice interrupt, good crowd control. Chanimal starting to fall down, huge damage. Cubsy needs to stabilize, get out a couple nourishes. He doesn't have time for nourish. He has to use regrowth. He's trying to race it, gets gripped. Smoke bomb gets dropped in desperation from Snuts, but Chun-Li portaled out of it right before the stun. Good denial by Chun-Li with that instant reaction time.
Yeah, that was sick play from Chun-Li, but Touch of Karma now available as he's looking to make an offensive push onto Chanimal. Still has the Unending Resolve. It's come off cooldown, so Chanimal going to be feeling relatively safe, but Cubsy's mana is not doing well. Gorecki moves in, Ring of Peace, knocks Chanimal potentially off the side. 2 Ring of Peace. Chanimal is off the top side of the bridge. Cubsy has to reposition himself in order to get some heals rolling onto Chanimal. Unending Resolve traded out instantaneously from Chanimal in that situation. Now the boys, they have another moment to push, but Gorecki, he's running out of mana, and running out of mana very quickly. He's not going to have too many Way of the Cranes left unless he can sneak away for a drink.
both healers totally tapped on mana. We have not even stepped foot into dampening, but this spells trouble for the Super Frogs as Chanimal is being pressured quite heavily. Dampening now kicked in. Gorecki's got a lot of cooldowns to trade. Super Frogs don't have that option. Cubsy's just tossing in some Solar Wraths, as that does not cost any mana. At least it can dish out some damage while he can't heal, but he's got to make a choice. Does he try and sneak away and drink and regenerate mana? If he does, Chanimal will fall behind, but if he doesn't, he can't keep healing him forever on 0 mana. It's a tough choice, but Gorecki might make the choice for him. Paralysis into a Ring of Peace, trying to stop him from healing. Cubsy's trying to sneak away. Who's going to stop him? Is anyone going to stop him? Gorecki's trying to stops him instantly. No mana for Cubsy. Gorecki still has some left in the tank. How much longer can Cubsy keep this up? If he manages to, I think the Super Frogs have good momentum.
Yeah, anti-magic zone from Smexen allows Chun-Li to stay in the fight and continue this damage on Chanimal. And Chanimal, he's in a lot of trouble. Cubsy with no mana left. He's looking for a drink, but Chanimal's just so low. What is he gonna do? Hanging on by a thread of 10% health. Kitty shot now onto Gorecki. Just nuts flailing to keep his teammate alive. Chanimal gets gripped out of line of sight, looking for a Chaos Ball. Who's gonna land on? Chun-Li uses Diffuse Magic preemptively. Good control from Chanimal. Lands a triple Shadow Fear into a Fear on Gorecki's Way of the Crane. No value from Gorecki into a Mortal Coil. Chanimal with a huge carry there in that game to keep him alive, but still in a little trouble. Cubsy hasn't been able to really recover too much mana. Gorecki, he still has his Life Cocoon, which is going to be really important. And Chun-Li, his defensive cooldowns are on such a short timer. He's going to be feeling really safe with this Touch of Karma coming up in a few seconds.
Cubsy gets stunned. Chanimal gates, but gets gripped back down. Not able to escape. Both Chun-Li and Smexen continue marching forward with dampening ramping up, and Cubsy having absolutely no mana left. What can they do? They've got Infernals. They've got one more big push, but if they don't get a kill with these Infernals, I think the boys are going to overwhelm the Super Frogs here on Blades Edge Arena. Maybe they just overwhelm them right now. Chun-Li knows that they've got it. He trinkets, but he trinkets into a blind. Good punish by Snuts, but even still not enough to stay alive. Innervate, but he's stunned on it. He can't heal, and Chanimal will fall. The boys clean it up, but I think we all know where we're going, and it's Ashamane's fall. And if you're the boys, I don't know if you're too excited about that.
Ashmane's could definitely be scary, but let's take this game and actually see what did happen. Zika, what caught your eye?
Well, every time Cubsy sneaks away for the drinks, we see the big setups come up, and that's really what it comes down to. Basically, the boys have the chokehold onto Cubsy. Nice place from Smexen there, by the way, gripping that gateway and also asphyxiating Cubsy to apply that extra pressure. Now here, Cubsy, he gets his Iron Bark out. The Infernals are down, so what Super Frogs wants to do here is they want to get a big Chaos Bolt out onto Chun-Li. They want to force Chun-Li basically in a situation where he has to run, and then Cubsy can top Chanimal here with the Innovate and then go look for the drink. The problem is, due to the map being so small, Gorecki has an easy time going up to Cubsy, deck sweeping him, using his Paralyze, dipping in and out between his targets, getting a good value on his Way of the Crane, and just shutting down that drink and also getting pressure out. And then that gives them the win. Now we're going to Ashamane's, and we're going to see Mage Lock Druid probably, and I want to see the boys lock in the same composition but with Resto Druid on the blind, and then the Prophecy. Mugambala Game 7.
Yeah, there's a chance for Mugambala, but Ashmane's seems almost like not even a prophecy, but a given at this point. Do you think that Ashmane's is going to be the map here?
Well, it just seems like the Super Frogs, anytime they can, they want to lock in that large map, and that sets themselves up quite nicely to lock in that Mage Lock Druid. And I think if they get that matchup, it's definitely a winning matchup for their team. I just want to see what the boys are going to be able to do. Are they going to lock in the Mistweaver once again? Do they opt to lock in potentially the Restoration Druid? I think that would be their best bet. Windwalker Death Knight with Gorecki on the Restoration Druid is going to be a little bit more flexibility and comfort for Gorecki going up against the Mage Lock.
Yeah, I think that that's the big thing that we've been talking about with Gorecki. We want to see him play both, but he's got to play to the map, and if he does do that, it seems like they can navigate through a lot of these situations. All of a sudden, we are seeing them pick up quite a bit of steam as well, and Sid, it looked like they were all but out of it at the very beginning of the series. It looked like it was going to be a 4-0.
Yeah, they've managed to clean it up, and I think we've all been accounting that to confidence on Gorecki's part. Now that he's feeling it, he's getting wins on the Mistweaver Monk. Now he's got to play a little bit more with strategy. Go for the Druid on the larger maps, go with the Mistweaver on the smaller maps, and yep, Ashamane's fall. Pretty obvious selection for the Super Frogs as they rely so heavily on the Wizard Cleave compositions, especially super effective against the boys since most of their roster is just double melee setups. I'm not sure if Thugonomics should be tagged in if they should play a Destruction Warlock, Windwalker, Restoration Druid. I'm not sure how that fares into the Rogue Warlock Druid, and this is the problem when you lose the first blind pick and then also lose the counter pick, but more importantly the blind pick. You lose the advantage to be able to see what composition is coming your way. I think their highest win percent has to be the Resto Druid, Unholy Death Knight, Windwalker, but nope, they're going to bring it in.
Wow.
Of all times, yeah, it's very interesting to see it now. Ven, you kind of, your initial reaction seems to be one where you do like it. Why?
Well, I think just bringing in Thugonomics on the Destruction Warlock is the best chance they have. I think with the Windwalker Death Knight into the Mage Lock, it's a losing matchup. Not ideal, but I think for this particular setup, Thugonomics with the Destruction Warlock, he's going to be able to bring in a lot of heat. Anything can really happen when there's a Destruction Warlock on your team. We do know Thugonomics, one of the most experienced Destruction Warlocks of all time. It's been the specialization he's really focused on. When Demonology's good, he plays Destruction. When Affliction's good, he plays Destruction. And when Destruction's good, he looks like a beast. So I think that might be exactly what the boys need to tag in. My only fear is what I kind of talked about during the last game is Super Frogs, if they lock in a Rogue with a Destruction Warlock, I feel like that Rogue has a lot more lockdown than Chun-Li really has available on the Windwalker Monk, and I think that will give the Super Frogs an edge when both of them are going to be trying to kill the opposing Warlock.
How do you feel about that?
That's exactly what I wanted to ask as well. How does this composition actually fare into the Roguelock Druid? And we're going to see it. I feel like... We haven't seen this matchup play, so we have to kind of go a little bit off of how the classes work with themselves. Like if we go for healers, Cubsy should be able to get drinks off in this matchup for the most part. If he doesn't get drinks off, the Mistweaver of Gorecki should be better. So if they can shut those drinks down by allowing Gorecki to run over, constantly harass Cubsy, use the Fell Hunter of Thugonomics as well to shut down a lot of those attempts outside of the Shadowmeld, of course, that could be good for the boys. Now, Thugonomics and Chanimals, there's nothing to discuss there really. And then, of course, Chun-Li on that Windwalker versus the Rogue. I feel like...
Nothing to discuss. What do you mean?
Well, I mean, they're both playing Destro Warlock. It's no difference there in the class.
Oh, okay.
Well, what, are we gonna have that discussion now as well? Hey, okay.
Hey, this is your job.
Oh, this is my job. Well, you already know. I said earlier. I think Chanimal is the best warlock. So
you didn't put either of them on your list, by the way.
Yeah, because they haven't been the best warlock for long enough for me to put them on that list.
All right. So as you're
making a lot of enemies.
I'm not making a lot of enemies. Okay. I'm saying Chanimal in the current iteration of World of Warcraft,
Warlock's on the list,
he's the best. Okay, that's what I think. However, is he 50% better than Thugonomics? Is he gonna school Thugonomics? I mean, even WizK he was able to at least tango a little bit with him, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, you can say whatever you want here, but Thugonomics is definitely gonna be able to hold his own against Chanimal. Even if I think Chanimal might be a bit better, I think they're still going to be able to compete with each other, right?
Yeah, I honestly, I actually,
the other thing is, the interesting thing here is the Windwalker versus the Rogue, okay? And that is your job because you play one, so go ahead.
And I actually, it was fun to joke around about it a little bit, but I totally understand the point of kind of saying like, okay, we can just take Chan and Thug out of the conversation right now because the real focus needs to be Snuts and Chun-Li. How is this matchup going to play out between these two guys? Both of them on what has essentially been their mains. Chun, definitely. Snuts on the Rogue is something that we've been saying more and more has become his main. Two different classes. How do they stack up?
Well, it's just all about the lockdown for the Assassination Rogue. The 20-second cooldown. Kidney Shot, really powerful way to just disrupt what Thugonomics is going to be able to do. If he needs to, he can vanish. He can get a Garrote Silence. He still has that low cooldown kick as well. For Chun-Li, his leg sweep is a minute cooldown. The stun doesn't last as long, although he has Spear Hand Strike and the Ring of Peace. Paralysis to deny. I just feel like overall the pressure and control from Snuts on the Assassination Rogue will be much greater than what Chun-Li has to offer.
All right, this is it. We're in the grand finals. It's a best of 7. Thugonomics gets tagged in. The boys are desperate to try and figure out a strategy on the large maps facing the Super Frogs, but it might be too little too late to take it. The Super Frogs still have 2 games to have to kind of throw away. But if they throw away Ashamane's, they throw away one of their best maps. And while Mugumbala is big, I wouldn't necessarily say it's even the similar playstyle to Ashamane or Tolvaron with multiple places to fight with lots of line of sight. Thugonomics is also already under fire. This is one thing for Gorecki, is healing a Death Knight with Death Strike is one thing. Healing a Destruction Warlock, who is reasonably tanky but not nearly as potent as Death Strike, is an entirely other thing. So the Super Frogs could set up big swaps and build momentum off of that.
Yeah, what are they going to be able to do? Thugonomics still with the Dark Soul, full blind now to Gorecki on his way to the Crane. He trinkets out, he wants to get value, he needs to top off his team. One of the things as well is I feel like Snuts isn't that great of a target for the boys to go after, whereas for Super Frogs, they have 2 targets. Chun-Li, very vulnerable. We've seen him go down against this Rogue Block Druid setup before, so there's multiple pressure points here for the Super Frogs, and this Fan of Knives build from Snuts is ripping into all 3 members. As long as the boys are stacked up like this, Snuts is going to be able to put out so much damage.
And because we're on Ashamane's fall, Cubsy can drink and regenerate mana and secure the late game advantage. Did he get any off the back of that drink? Unfortunately not. This Fan of Knives build really tearing in onto 3 targets. Let's see if Snuts can carry the team. Smoke Bomb available. Could be a big punish on Chun-Li. Maybe he just dies. He's taking so much. Chanimal as well. Unending Resolve exchanged. Big defensive cooldown forced out here, and Thugonomics getting tagged in, and those big Chaos Bolts paying off.
Thugonomics, a very brave, strong Destruction Warlock. Been playing it for just years and years at this point. A lot of experience on his side, going toe-to-toe with Chanimal in this match. If we look at mana, Cubsy behind. He needs to go for a drink, but Chanimal with no Unending Resolve, I don't think Cubsy has the time he really needs to regenerate mana. Mortal Coil, Chanimal left all alone. Danger time. Thugonomics looking to take him down with the Demon Soul, the Dark Soul. Cubsy does come back in the nick of time, regenerate a little bit of mana. Greedy plays by the Super Frogs, but ultimately Cubsy regenerated the mana that he needed, kept Chanimal alive. Now Super Frogs looking to reverse the pressure.
Chanimal looking for a Chaos Bolt. Thugonomics Nether Wards and reflects it back at him. Definitely top tier Destruction Warlock play here. Thugonomics actually runs through Chanimal, interrupts his Chaos Bolt cast by running behind him, trying to just maximize every single opportunity. I've never seen 2 Warlocks this close to each other. I can't tell if they're trying to battle or if they're trying to give each other a hug. You don't normally see Wizards get this close to each other. Thugonomics getting bursted down. Gorecki stabilizes with a Life Cocoon, but even still under fire. Although now a significant mana advantage for Gorecki. Way of the Crane. How are they going to deny it?
I don't think they're hugging each other. They're throwing out demonic bolts and destruction every opportunity that they get. So Chanimal's being locked down, double leg sweep coming in once again from Chun-Li. Gorecki with the Way of the Crane looking to add the little bit of extra damage that his team really needs on a Chanimal. Chanimal forced to retreat, but you can see Thugonomics has put his gateway on top of Chanimal, so if they really need to, they can use that to chase him down. Cubsy throws out the Iron Bark as well as the Innervate, wants to keep Chanimal alive. Interrupt onto Gorecki. Now Thugonomics could be in some trouble. 2 Chaos Bolts connect from Chanimal, looking for a fear onto Thugonomics, denying his Unending Resolve, not allowing him to get any sort of counter pressure or crowd control out during these moments. Cubsy caught into a fear. Thugonomics still in a little bit of trouble in the situation. That was, although the Vendetta, you can see Chanimal with the Infernals is going to have huge offensive potential shortly.
Good Cyclone push by Cubsy here onto Gorecki, but his team couldn't follow it up. It's actually Chanimal who's falling behind. Cubsy now in crowd control. Mana is even. That's not what you want as the Druid. You need to be utilizing the big map, and you have to be regenerating mana to be full against the Mistweaver Monk if you want to win. Cubsy sits down. Nobody's going to stop him? Do they not know where he is? This is devastating for the boys as we get closer to dampening. If Cubsy was able to get some mana, he's full.
Full mana for the Super Frogs. Gorecki, he's not looking too healthy at around 20%. Throwing out the Life Cocoon to keep Thugonomics alive, and I don't mind that trade from Gorecki, but now no longer has that safety net if he needs it. Chun-Li getting feared away. Snuts on top of Gorecki, potentially setting him up for a swap. He doesn't have a trinket. If he gets Rupture and Garrote up onto Gorecki, can find a kidney shot during this Way of the Crane. This is an opportunity for the Super Frogs to get really aggressive.
All right, let's see what they can do, but Snuts gets swapped to and bursted down. The boys look to move to a Game 7. Snuts barely stays alive. Cubsy regenerated all of that mana. It would be a bit of a throwaway to go down right afterwards. Now that Snuts has not died, Super Frogs are in a commanding position with 3 members low. Dampening just kicking in. Gladiator's Maledict's flying onto Thugonomics. That healing is being absorbed. He's in trouble. It's match point.
Oh, no!
He's desperately trying to hold on as long as possible. Gorecki gets in the bomb. Connects 1 heal, but full blind. He gets stunned on the trinket. Thugonomics gets kicked on the fear. Gorecki gets feared afterwards. How are you still alive, Thugonomics? 1 kill. Life Cocoon at 1%. I don't think the Super Frogs can believe what they're seeing.
Yeah, but they managed to pull out every defensive cooldown in the process. Snuts doesn't want to play too aggressive in this situation. He really doesn't have too much left. No evasion, no Cloak of Shadows. Vendetta gets pulled out. He's trying to take down Thugonomics. Snuts is just so low. In desperation, uses Vanish. Cheap shot on Chun-Li. Garrote Silence onto Thugonomics. Healing everyone from the team of the boys. Now Goreki's completely tapped on mana. That advantage Cubsy got by sitting down and recovering his mana with that drink is now playing into the favor of the Super Frogs.
All right, Goreki, you're totally tapped on mana and you're on match point. What are you going to do? The pressure is on. Cubsy, although may need to try and drink again, he's already burned through all the mana he regenerated. That's why it's so important for the Druids to sneak away. Cubsy's in crowd control. They've got a couple opportunities maybe to kill Snuts. He's vulnerable, but they need to see it. They have to go for a leg sweep swap to Snuts if they want to find that kill, while still avoiding Chanimal's Chaos Bolts, which are now being cast interrupted by Thugonomics. Pressure still on both sides. Innervate for Cubsy. Can they deny Innervate? It's very important. It makes all of Cubsy's heals free. There's no crowd control. He's getting a ton of free healing. He tops his team off easily. Goreki gets feared on his push. Chun-Li has to make a trade, but now they can switch to Thugonomics. Pressure in multiple places. Goreki not with much left to work with. Drops the life cocoon. Stabilizes the team for one more push onto Chanimal, but with unending resolve, it's unlikely that we see him go down. This is looking better and better for Super Frogs.
Yeah, Super Frogs on match point. If they win this, they will win another cup. The boys, they have to hold on. They want to be securing as many points as possible. Now with the bash on the Goreki, denying that way the Crane. Thugonomics could be in a lot of trouble. Goreki finally getting off a few globals to heal up his team and do some damage over on the Snuts. Thugonomics gets interrupted. This assassination rogue from Snuts is dealing devastation onto Thugonomics as he's caught in the midfield. Second Maledict Trinket is going to land on Thugonomics. Is he going to be able to escape once again? Unending resolve. Big pressure on the Chanimal. What is Chanimal going to do? Shadow Fury tossed out. Looks like Mortal Coil is going to be used by Chanimal as he looks to get a Chaos Bolt. Thugonomics gates away, avoids the damage. They have to hold on. Life Cocoon available in 4 seconds. Kidney shot on Thugonomics. Chanimal from downtown with the Chaos Bolt closes out the series. Super Frogs secure 4 out of 5 cups.
Yeah, and they are going to be matched now with their EU counterpart, the #1 team in EU. Both Method Black and the Super Frogs now going to have 540 points, a very dominant lead. But I do have to say the boys came alive late in that series. They really started to figure it out quite a bit, and they're looking like even more of a threat, even though they've been the second place team for such a long time. They're starting to look like even more of a threat, I feel like, to the Super Frogs.
Honestly, both of these teams are really leveling up, and it's kind of what we saw over in Europe as well. Last week, it was just a walkover for Wildcard Gaming. This week, Method Black definitely had a couple of answers with that Mage Windwalker. Here as well, the boys picking in that Mistweaver, and it came down a lot of it came down to that blind pick, but also to that one game that they lost against RLD. If they had a bit more confidence with the Mistweaver of Goreki, I feel like this could have gone all the way to Game 7, and it could have really, really been about that first blind pick. So both of these regions, top 2 teams, really have been putting it to the test here, and I'm very excited to see how the next cup is going to look, and then how the actual LAN is going to look after that, because these teams are just getting better and better.
Yeah, I think that that's something that we've definitely seen. The top teams have just gotten that much better, but still we see squads like the Move that are going to be fighting in that next one to try to make it to that LAN. As you can see from NA, the story today really was who was the best out of the boys in Super Frogs, and if the Move could spoil that. Method Orange bows out a little bit early. They don't make it to Championship Sunday. In EU, we're going to see a relatively similar situation. You're not going to have the Move, obviously, but you do have Method Black and Wildcard Gaming trying to prove that they are the top 2 teams. I think that they have very much done that. They're able to take down Change My Mind with ease. And ultimately, I feel like in EU, you really see those teams strongly established as the top 2 of the region, and we're going to see that on the standings as well. I feel like Wildcard Gaming, even though they're in second, they have just really proven that they're heating up. They may be able to go for first very shortly here, but the question is going to be who's going to grab that 4th spot. You see, it's only a 4-point difference right now between the Pumpers and ABC, and you can see some of those other teams inching up slowly. They still have a real shot in the last cup. And then it's only going to be a matter of 8 points between the squads in North America. And we still know that there is another factor that may arise, and that is all the people who can still sign up for this cup. I mean, I remember when WizK was a random priest on the Vindiction BG. It's crazy how he's considered one of the best now. Can you guys make that leap? You can sign up right now at battlefy.com/world-of-Warcraft-arena-world-championship. We hope to cast over you very soon. But the next cup, it is going to not be next weekend. It's going to be the one after that. We have a small break, but some juicy stuff is brewing. We're going to get a brand new spicy patch thrown right at our face. What are the players going to do with all of the new things are coming? Who is going to adapt the quickest, and who is going to grab the majority of the points in the final cup of the season? You're not going to want to miss it as we figure out which teams are going to make it all the way to land.